Hi, my friends. Welcome to Living the Liminal this week. I'm so glad that you're here. This is just going to be a great conversation today. I have a guest on who I think we're really going to be talking about so many things that people in today's lifestyle really need. And we all need stuff. We all go through moments in our lives where we need support and we need encouragement and we need knowledge and we need to be really healthy. And we need to understand what that really is. And it's not always the food that you eat. That's part of it, but it's not always that. And in our past, we've always thought that being healthy was about eat the right foods or eat less of this or eat more of that, or work out more or work out less. And this conversation is really going to be looking at other ways of thinking about being healthy and being well and kind of knowing ourselves fully in that space. So I want us to welcome Kristian Reiber to the podcast today. He is a health and mindset coach. He's the author of, get this, Dare to be Authentic. Love that word. You know I do. Finding your purpose. And I know so many of us are always looking for, why am I here? What am I supposed to do with myself? And he just loves to do a lot of stuff. He's a seeker, and I can't wait to talk about what this means. A purveyor of knowledge and an unconventional perspective oracle. So, I'm going to jump right in and we're going to get to a lot of conversation about those things in describing how he describes himself. So Kristian, welcome to Living the Liminal. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so kindly, Christy. It's a pleasure to be here and I'm honored. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Okay. So I love the part that you said you're a seeker, because that just means you're always on a journey. I love that. Okay. What does it mean, a purveyor of knowledge and an unconventional perspective oracle? Okay. Fill us in how that found you.
Sure. And so in becoming a health and mindset coach, a lot of my job is offering unique and unconventional perspectives to my clients. They've been looking at challenges they've faced through the same lens a lot of times. And so when I hear from them what's holding them back, I can use that sort of unique standpoint of going through a ton of challenges and finding my way through those and having that experience, that it lets me sort of look at their challenges and issues from a perspective that maybe they had never really thought of. And so in offering that different perspective and sharing with them the what I see in the words they're telling me, it allows me to ask them a question that they haven't already asked themselves. And so, am I actually an oracle? No, not really. But it's just,
I just love the word. I just thought it was a clever use of words. So,
and so it's great. It allows me to help them look at their own life and their own challenges in a different light, in a different viewpoint. And it really helps them kind of gauge whether the things that are holding them back are real or imagined. And so in doing that, it can help them, take bigger steps forward. And so as far as a purveyor of knowledge, I share the knowledge that I've gained over decades of studying science and that type of thing. So that's where I'm coming from with that stuff.
I think the interesting thing is the body. So when the study of science, what I know where we are now is that we are finally understanding that it's not just the science part. There is also this other part to growth, to developing, to evolving, to being on a journey. It's not just all about the scientific piece. There's so much more. And even as we look scientifically at the mind and the way the mind works, there's still these other layers to it that we
Yeah.
haven't really ever considered. And we are starting to kind of consider those aspects in what we do. Do
Right.
you find yourself pulling from that understanding as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think emotions are such a critical part of um, growth and change and
Mhm.
finding your way. Um, Society sort of teaches us to dismiss emotions, get rid of them as quickly as they come. And this doesn't allow us to actually understand why the emotion is there,
Right.
and then also understand, like, what's the message? What is this emotion actually telling me? Because if we can do that, if we can zero in on why it's there and what it's telling us, then it's not going to just come back later on as something more intense and somehow worse. We can feel the emotion, know why it's there, learn our lesson, and then let it go rather than pushing it away and finding a way around it.
Because he's even when we, I mean, isn't it when we push it away, we make it bigger,
Right.
right? So I
Right.
mean, like something that was just little and simple and could have just been easily met in the moment, we push it away, and that sort of gives it the authority to grow.
Right. And then all of a sudden it's coming back as, a nastier monster. It's just
Yeah.
something worse.
Why do you think we're so afraid of emotional agency?
I think it's just been ingrained in our society.
Mhm.
It seems like all emotion, unless it's mild happiness, is somewhat unacceptable in the moment. Even if you're too happy, that's not
Oh,
okay
yeah.
either, right? Then you're
Yeah,
just,
it's like
whoa,
it's
then
like
you're over the top, or
oh, I know. And I'm laughing when you say that, like too happy or even and when you refer to it as mild happiness, because so many times my kids have come home from their teachers and they've been like, "Ma, she's like way into her stuff." And I'm like, because she has a passion for what she's teaching you, like that's not a bad thing, dude. And
right,
or like if I'm really filled with joy because I'm just in this moment, we're out on a mountain, my whole family is hiking, I just feel, and if I start to like say, my kids are like, Mom, you need to tone it down. Mom, you're just being so weird. So
right.
I love that you even acknowledge that, because yeah, I think that if you're one way or the other, or even, if you're filled with grief, we run. I mean, we run from the negative ones just as much as you're right. We run from the more positive ones too.
Yeah. So with your question about why it's just it's ingrained in us. Everyone, I don't want to say everyone per se, but it's like all the messages we get, whether it's media, TV, movies, a lot of books, it's the same message. It's like emotions are over the top regardless of their
Mhm.
um, intensity. And so
Yeah.
we hurry up and kind of get rid of them because we don't want to be over the top. And it's just such a damaging message. We need to feel emotions. It's how we grow. It's how we find our way in the world. And it's too bad that it's become so taboo.
Yeah. How do you help your clients to tone down that noise? Because it's also, I mean, not even just about emotions, but even about the body and about the mind and, so many things. It's just noise. How do we tone that down?
The first step is almost always awareness.
Mhm.
And so we put a spotlight on whatever it is, whether it's emotion or other trouble, um, putting a spotlight on it and becoming aware of it and what it is, what it's telling us, what should we be learning from it. In becoming aware, I think it accomplishes that immediate sense of toning things down where you can maybe just think about it in a different way and get a better feeling for what's going on either in your head or around you or with the family. There's there's so many things that kind of play into that. But that to me is the first step, is just, shining a spotlight on it so that there can be more awareness.
Yeah, I think when you can actually take that step back, you're right. It allows you to start being curious and to ask questions about, okay, what does this mean in my life and what's happening? I know right now I have this like pain in my Achilles tendon. It's driving me bonkers. I don't remember having a moment where I did something to it. It just started. So I keep talking to it like, okay, what are I have this physical pain. I don't know where it came from. So I'm trying to just sit with it, talk with it, because I don't know why it's hurting. I don't remember falling or twisting. So I think in those moments, don't you find with your clients that getting into that piece where you can start to look at things and say, I wonder why, or why is this happening, or what does this mean? I mean, has that been your experience too?
Absolutely. And I love that you use the word curious, being curious, like
Mhm.
that's the key. It's curiosity, is like, oh yeah, this is happening to me. Maybe I should know a little bit more about it. And so first raising the awareness around the thing, um, that's what drives the curiosity and starts those questions.
Yeah, because when you can start to ask, then it frees up some of that conditioning to that holds you so tightly into past ways of doing things, right? It isn't, I mean, like it's all about changing habits and changing mindset and changing beliefs and changing emotions and doing some of that. So the minute that we can start to ask the questions of the painful parts of us, or the pain, whatever's causing us to be in discomfort, it empowers us.
I couldn't agree more. That's very well put. Yeah.
What has been your most well, let's use the dare to be authentic. What has been your most powerful moment with a client where they were daring to be authentic?
That's a great question.
People like stories, so
Yeah,
that's why I'm asking that, because we get empowered by listening to other people's stories.
agreed. So I think the most powerful is when a client connects something that's going on in their life right now with lessons they learned in the past
Mhm.
that weren't true in the past, and they're not true now. They never were true. It's like, um, I'll never be good enough, or I'm not worth other people's time, or no one likes me, or, and these sort of behind the scenes beliefs just they influence people's decisions so much
Yes.
that, but even though that's true, it's hard to recognize that the belief is there until they start looking at their actions through a different perspective. So it sort of brings us back to what we were talking about before, in having someone who hears your words and offers a different perspective or a different way of looking at it.
Uh-huh.
Then all of a sudden we can say, okay, well, where is that action coming from? What drives you to to do that? And is it real? Is it something like those false beliefs that I was listing, or is it something that's actually true? And so when we can shine a light on that, then
Yeah.
we can really kind of move on and decide where to go from there.
So I kind of believe that authenticity is about dismantling the lies that are really not true. How do you define authenticity?
I like your definition a lot. I think that makes a great point. I think authenticity is, to me, it's like the inner child within us that is full of joy and full of curiosity and full of wanting to learn and wanting to um, be a part of something and wanting to live a full life. And then all of a sudden we're sort of thrust into this, what I call a treadmill cycle of, well, the most important thing is work, got to pay the bills, and then school, and, then we got to eat, and then, we have entertainment and sleep. It's like we go through this daily cycle, this coined treadmill cycle, but it just,
It feels
that
like a hamster on a wheel.
yeah, and
We're just like running the wheel.
Right. And so it sort of dampens these amazing things that we have growing inside us as a youth, to where that all has to be pushed aside because it's not allowed to be as important as everything else that's going on.
Yeah. So then how do you define purpose? Because a lot of people define that totally different, I'm learning. Like everyone has a different understanding of that word. So how do you define purpose?
Until a few years ago, I didn't have a clue what it really meant.
And then half the time, do we even have a clue once we figure out we think we know?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think purpose is also related to what's real and what our hearts speak. And so it isn't about necessarily a thought process. I think, as you mentioned before we started the show, when you were talking about purpose, it just sort of finds us. It isn't something, if we actively, really searching for purpose, I think it's super difficult to find. But if we can live our lives using our hearts to make decisions rather than overthinking everything, then all of a sudden, maybe, it just sort of falls in our lap and we understand, that we're on the right path. And that's what happened to me, when I became a coach and started seeing people get past struggles they've been dealing with for years and sometimes decades. Like, then it just, sort of blurted out a loud cry to me saying, this is it. This is helping people get past their challenges is your purpose.
Yeah, because don't you think we walk around a lot with, you talked about mask wearing. I mean, we're good at that. We're good at creating the masks, or like in the Jungian world, he talks about the persona, which is the mask, right? So like, we're really good at creating those.
No kidding.
I mean, yeah, like we can create a lot of different ones sometimes too.
Depending on the, who you're with, the setting, the area you're in, I know people who wear a different mask for each and every one of those.
Yeah. And so I know a lot of your work is about helping people really tune into what do they want, because the mask is just protecting them from getting hurt by their desires.
Right. And it's this protective shield that unfortunately isn't just protecting them from negativity and problems. It's also protecting them from the good things in life. It's protecting them from really understanding love and embracing of emotions and all of that type of thing. So I think the mask is a shield that has some benefits, but I think way more profound negatives than we think.
It's very limiting, and yet you don't know it's limiting until it begins to really, you see the effects of it in your own life.
Exactly.
By your outer experiences. So I have come to believe again that why we do what we do is so important if we know that. So how do you help people get to that why of their decisions?
It's empathetic listening first. I have to really just sort of shut off any sort of judgment, any sort of relation to my life, anything like that. And so that the questions can really just focus in on not what they want on the surface. And there's this exercise called the 7 whys that I'm just crazy about, where let's say there's a challenge. The first question is, okay, well, why is that a challenge? But then their answer, and perhaps something that's not said in that answer, gives me the next question, why? And with each one, it peels back some layers and gets a little bit deeper. And then by the fifth answer to a why question, they're beyond the first, 4 or 5 sort of ingrained or
the conditioning, like
yes, exactly.
The programming that has created those layers.
Yeah. And so once we get past the first 4 or 5, then it's like, oh, I hadn't thought about that before. And then number 6 is really close. Number 7 is typically like the real reason why that thing is going on. And so that peeling back of layers and getting to the root of what's really going on is critical.
Do you find a lot of your clients, like when they first come to you, they're scared of the change, of the transformation?
I think so. And I think it also holds a lot of people back from getting started. They're convinced that they won't be able to change, or they're, we're just, it's another thing like dismissal of emotions. Change is scary. We're taught that from when we're little. Warning, here comes change, and stepping outside the comfort zone is the only place where change can happen. So it is a big part of it. I think you're exactly right.
And like, I was thinking the other day, like, sometimes I think people are afraid of change because we're afraid of losing those tangible things that we have comfort with, right? So it's like when you're little, and I know in my family, when you were 2, you had to give up the binky. Can't have the binky when you're 3 and 4 and going to preschool. So, and then you eventually have to give up your blankie, right? And we can fold it up and have it in the closet. So it's like these stages of having to sort of release things that really don't work for you anymore. And I remember my older son, when he was 2, and we gave the binky up, we always boxed it up and gave it to the binky fairy. And I remember him coming back one day and he said, can I just have it for a little while? Like, and I think that's sort of like an example of like why people are scared to go down that journey of transformation, because they are so afraid to have to release or give up the comfort of what they're used to. And I mean, with any transformation, there is a release of some sort. You have to let go of some things. How do you help your clients like feel that sense of, I'm going to use the word urgency to release, because that's part of moving forward, and yet feel peace in releasing that?
Sure. Boy, that's a good question. I think once they understand what's been holding them back and get a handle on the fact that most of the time it's something they believe from their past that isn't true. And with the spotlight, shown on that lack of truth, it's kind of like an aha moment. And they realize, well, holy cow, I've been grasping on to this source of comfort that isn't serving me. And realizing that although in that moment they're gaining a little bit of comfort, knowing that there are other ways to gain similar comfort that aren't self-sabotaging can be really freeing for the openness to change and to figuring out a better way.
Yeah, because I feel like you're right. When you get to that aha moment, it's like Maya Angelou said, when you know better, you do better. So that aha, like once that comes in, it's like you can't deny. So you can't keep holding on to what you're like knowing now.
I wholeheartely agree. And she's amazing. I think I should have a wall of Maya.
Oh my gosh, couldn't we all have a wall of that stuff? I mean, like,
amazing.
I just remember I've carried that quote around for a while, because it's like, when you know better, you do better. And it's like, yeah, like there's some things you're just not going to know, right? You're not aware of it. You're not aware until you become aware, and
Yeah.
you don't know until you know. And then, and it's sort of like once you really know who you are, then you cannot make wrong decisions because your authenticity doesn't allow that anymore. Something
Right.
inside of you is going to speak up and say, yo, no way. You got to stop this. No, thanks. I don't want that anymore. This is not good for you. Like you hear that voice then.
Right. It's sort of like, hey, I'm still in here,
Yeah.
but don't
Yeah.
desert me, you know?
Yeah. Like
Um,
you get to know yourself better. And it's almost like there's multiple aspects of you. And now those aspects have a voice
right.
and they
Right.
get to talk and you're going to listen because
Yeah.
you can not, I mean, you just can't do it anymore.
Right. And we get in the habit of dismissing those voices and
Yeah.
not listening to them because we tell ourselves, well, that's not important enough. I got to get that piece of comfort, whatever it is. I got to hold on to that thing because it's given me comfort for decades. Why, I can't desert this piece of comfort just to listen to some random voice in my head. But then once the piece of comfort's out of the way, then all of a sudden the voice is like, oh yeah, that's me. It's not just
Yeah.
some random voice. That's my heart speaking.
Right.
It's not something to be dismissed.
So, how did this work find you?
I suffered for, I want to say, over 15 years with psoriasis, which is an autoimmune disorder.
Uh-huh.
And all the dermatologists said the same thing. It's like you got to use the pharmaceuticals, and that's your only way. There's no cure. Which, the first time I heard that was just disheartening, just tore me down. I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so then 7 years ago, I went to my last dermatologist appointment, and he was like, you've really been sort of struggling with this. And what do you think of me writing you a prescription for Humira, which is an immune suppressor? And with what I know about science and the human body going into that, I knew that I was just sort of stuck in the system,
Yeah.
and I was on the verge of doing something that could really, really hurt me.
Uh-huh.
And so, when you watch a Humira commercial, it takes almost the entire commercial to tell you all the horrible things that can happen to you by doing
That
that.
always makes me laugh, to be honest. The commercials of some of these drugs, they speak more, you're right, into what the harmful effects are. And it's like, well, are we not listening to that? Because they have more things to say, yes, about what's not going to be working with us than what is.
Yeah. So I left the
Oh,
office. I didn't fill the prescription. I knew deep down that that was not the way to go.
yeah.
So I dove back into research, and I had tried to research natural solutions to psoriasis for years because it was debilitating and, kept me in long sleeve and long pants in the summer, just that type of like trying to hide what was going on with my skin. But this time I got lucky, or I was diving deeper or whatever. But I found this guy who created a program. He had suffered through psoriasis for 20 years, just like me. And what he found out through trial and error is that it's really an overload of toxins that
Uh-huh.
is causing this problem with my body.
Right.
So my
Right.
kidneys and liver were unable to keep up. That led to the toxins having to make their way to the skin
Yeah.
for my body to get them out. And then at the skin, the immune system attacks the toxins, making it look like it's attacking the skin.
Right.
And so just that, speak of an aha moment, that was just like, oh
Oh,
man,
yeah.
he found what I've been looking for. So with a diet change and getting away from household toxins and body care toxins and all of that, it took, I want to say 6 weeks or more And it was getting worse, because I had to stop the meds and
Right.
everything to get going on the protocol. And it was getting worse. And I was just more and more sort of depressed, like, oh, here we go again. I'm trying something else that isn't working. And then it started to turn around and clear up and start to get better. So going through that journey, it was just this, it was like a headline in the newspaper, like there are
Yeah.
a lot of other people stuck, and I wanted to figure out how to help them.
Yeah.
And so I would, just in conversation, I'd hear people talking about their struggles, and I'd offer up, that some of what I learned that helped me. And I was giving advice constantly, and unsolicited advice, if you know what I mean. So I was just
You just want
pouring
anyone to
out,
hear you. Yeah.
yeah, just pouring out all this advice. And what I noticed after a while is that wasn't helping people change.
No.
So then I stumbled across this like post or something for a coaching program, and I read about it, and it gave me the sense of like, it seems like I'm sort of approaching this wrong. And then when I went through the coaching training, and it talked about pulling back on the advice and kind of holding off a little bit on that and turning to, okay, ask questions.
Yeah.
When you ask questions and you start to kind of dive in and get some of these things into the light and expose them to some scrutiny, then you can figure out, well, what is an emotional connection to the change?
Yeah.
And so that's where I realized, holy cow, I really can help people and make a big, big difference.
Yeah.
As opposed to just offering a ton of advice and making very little difference. So that's sort of a short story of how I found this.
Well, it seems like with your story and a lot of stories that I listen to, there's always an unprocessed emotion as the root cause for the thinking, the believing, and then the action. And then other emotions become interplaying with that unprocessed emotion. But it usually starts with an emotion.
I agree. And
which is hard for us to say, but the root cause of so many things is just we didn't have the emotional agency to work through what we were feeling in the moment.
Right. Or the emotional support, or that type of thing. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, because it's challenging when you're not. I mean, even as adults, we have those moments where you're feeling something so intensely. And that's also another aha is when you start to realize, I don't really know what I'm doing in this emotion. Like, I don't really have a path for, or a step-by-step procedure for how to do this emotion, what it means. I've never felt this before. So it can even happen, I think, as adults. It's not all about when we were children necessarily. And I think that our bodies are just so wise to let us know, hey, I'm here. It's time to do some work.
Right. And then we're lucky if we can understand the message, right? Because the body is telling us a bunch of different stuff. And it's like, if we're misinterpreting the message or dismissing the message, or just doing like what the medical system teaches us in recognizing that there is a symptom, and the action that's supposed to be taken is to get rid of that symptom. Hurry up and get rid of the symptom, because you don't want any symptoms. And so that in doing that, then we're never looking at the root. What is the root cause of this? So I agree. It's like, if we're not getting these messages and understanding them, if we're just trying to get rid of them, then how can we learn from it?
Yeah, it's almost making me think that's just the same cycle as the beginning. We were trying to get rid of the emotion, so we bypassed it, hid it, shoved it into the dark, and we're kind of cycling into the same exact process again. Now we're just using symptoms.
Right.
hide the symptoms, get rid of them, put them in the dark. We'll deal with it later.
Yeah. And hurry up about it. Right.
And quickly do this because I don't
Yeah.
want this to show. Yeah, I don't want this mask. This is not what I was talking about. I need to put the other mask back on. Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of an interesting way of thinking about it.
I agree.
So, this whole body and health, I mean, like, what's your definition of health? Because again, everybody has different definitions of health. I mean,
Right. And with the global pandemic, you see stay healthy as if not having a globally problematic disease equals health.
yeah.
So that part's ridiculous. But my definition is mind, body, and being. It's
Okay.
like it's like um, if our bodies aren't healthy, we're not healthy. If our minds aren't healthy, we're not healthy. If we're not healthy in our being or our soul, or however we
Yeah.
look at that part of us, then we're not healthy. So I think it's a combination of all three, and the they're all so intertwined that you can't just look at one of them and say, well, we'll work on this and we'll
Right.
get you moving in the right direction with that. Some people are already healthy in their minds and in their souls, but then it only takes work with the body to get them there. But by thinking that health is really only related to our physical health, just puts a roadblock up to healing. And we can't
Yeah.
necessarily, uh, get that full person, health as it goes.
Yeah. Cause it's kind of like our end result should be wholeness. And so we have to look at all the different puzzle pieces and make sure they're all fitting together smoothly, right? Like as if you're
Right.
putting together a puzzle. So do you think we ever arrive there?
No, I think it's a journey that just is ongoing. Because it's so easy to fall back into old habits, especially under
Yeah.
stress, and that type of thing. So yeah, and for me, I've gained an amazing level of health, and I don't get sick anymore. I don't, like that type of thing. But I also know I'm not there. I've just turned 50, and so I know that eventually things are not going to be working the way I want them to.
Well, and I feel like that's probably the one, you can tell me if you agree, but I kind of thinking that would be the one biggest thing we could all do to be healthy is to adopt the mindset you're never going to arrive.
Right. And
Because then we're not working toward an end result. We're working toward the betterment of the moment before or the day before or the
yeah,
year before, or, I mean, like I haven't gotten sick in a long time. Does my body still kind of get run down and kind of mimic a cold necessarily when I need to like take a nap or take a day off? Yeah. It's not sick. It's just your body is saying, hey, come on, you've been going. You got to take a little break here.
yeah,
So don't you kind of think that?
I do. I really do. And so like with diets, um,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, don't even.
there's
Oh my God. We could have a whole conversation on diets.
it's like there's a finish line, and you get to the finish line and you've gained this loss of weight or whatever you're after with that. But then you're just like, well, I'm there. I can just do whatever I want and I'll be fine. But without the sense of realization that it is a sort of permanent journey,
Yeah.
then there's no lifestyle change. It's just, oh crap, maybe that diet didn't do what I wanted it to. Let me try another one. And then, it's just on to the next one size fits all plan that, again, maybe produces some results. But in the end, if you're not changing something fundamental in what you were doing before you started the program, then you're destined to go back. And the numbers show that.
Yeah.
Dieting just does not work. And that type of mentality where there's like a finish line and you can finally be done.
Which I have been on, and I know a lot of us have. I mean, I know probably like 8 years ago, I lost a ton of weight, was in like the perfect size clothes for me. Oh my gosh, I felt so great. This is so wonderful. I was like bopping around, smiling. And the day I had to realize, but you're a shit show on the inside. Like you've got now what you've been working towards on the outside, right? That mask, but you're a shit show on the inside. Like you're messed up. Your emotions are messed up. Your spirituality is not even intact. Like you think bad about yourself. You judge yourself. Like your narrative is terrible to yourself. And it was funny because like the moment I had to kind of be aware of it, I was like, what the heck did I just do? I spent all this time in one area and didn't really even consider, oh my gosh, there's all these other areas. So then I started paying attention to the other areas. Well, then the body kind of got out of whack. And it's sort of like hilarious because you're like, am I ever going to get this all figured out? And then you have to finally get to the aha that you're not meant to. You got to always have something to you're working towards or working on. I mean, that's part of life.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up like the narrative sort of like inner dialogue thing going on.
Yeah.
If we're beating ourselves up for failures, then it's turning failure into this like dead end
Yes.
rather than something that we can simply learn from. And so it's another just ridiculous lesson we're hearing from society that you can't fail because holy crap, that's the end of everything you ever tried and you're doomed, rather than, oh, here's a failure. Okay, well, what went wrong? How can I learn from that? And then get back on and keep going. So I think you're right. We just, if we're not supportive of ourselves, if we're
Yeah.
literally tearing ourselves to shreds for setbacks and roadblocks that pop up and that type of thing, it makes finding out who you really want to be and making progress insanely difficult.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about being heart-centered and you talked a little bit about like your soul. So when you were going through your own experience, your own lived experience with the psoriasis, did you subscribe to a higher power? Was that part of your journey, you think?
No, when I was going through the psoriasis thing, it was just sort of like you with your diet. I was 100% focused in on my body and
Just the body.
figuring out that healing. But then in the background, in my own inner dialogue and those narratives, everything was negative and overthinking and all of that. I've never been religious, but I'm gaining quite a bit of spirituality over the last few years,
Yeah.
after making some mindset shifts and starting to really understand that the ego, the persona, it kept telling me so many lies. And
Yes.
when I could finally figure out that if I just wait a few seconds past my initial egoic response to things, then all of a sudden I real quiet. I hear my heart talking and it's in there and it's
Yeah.
telling me the right thing. But if I
Yes.
don't stop for a second after the ego speaks up and I move on, then I'm not hearing that. And so it was really quite an awakening. And it was a couple of years after I healed my body. It was a couple of years later. It was like, oh, wow, this is what whole body healing is about. It
Yeah.
isn't just about the body, like fixing failed mindsets and getting rid of things about myself that I believed. That was real growth.
Yeah. Because like when you include that higher power, it just brings a richness to your life. And I love that you talked about that experience, because the other day I was in it. I was upset about something that I don't even remember what it was, but I could hear the narrative. And it was like, and I could feel this like, uh, I was satiated with, and I just was like, I could hear the in my head, the little that goes on, right? That little hyper monkey talk that just kind of, and I was like, I don't even know why you're feeling like this. And I'm not going to talk about this right now. Like I just had to, and it just kept coming after me. Like it wanted me to act upon it. And there was something in me that was like, no, I'll wait. No, I'll wait. No, I'll wait. And literally this morning I woke up and it was like gone. And I was like, huh. And then instantly the person that I was having the triggered moment, let's say, with, that I didn't act upon, all of a sudden I get an email and it's addressing the things that I wanted, that I was concerned about. I didn't have to say or do anything out of ego. Like it was like, huh, this is so, like I was sitting there as if I had just gotten like the biggest gift or present ever, an aha moment, because I was like, that's how it works. If we just pause and don't act upon the ego, believe the lies, listen to what it's saying, carry on with actions from that as we're projecting out, life really does kind of come back and work for you.
Yeah. And imagine if you had lashed out or something.
Yes, it would have caused harm.
You might not have
Because
gotten
I was pissed off. I was ready to address. I was going to come firing because I was sure I was right and this person was wrong. And it's so hilarious now. I mean, because I don't think we understand that enough, that if we just don't learn, okay, it's a new learned behavior, right? If we just sit and let that ego chomp away in our mind, give it some, okay, I'm not going to feed the beast. Just going to watch you do your thing. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciating you bringing this to my awareness. I'm going to go and release myself. I'm going to go for a walk or watch a movie or take a nap or whatever. It really goes away because it gets tired of talking because no one's listening. and eventually then it's like divine order just orchestrates this most perfect, figuring out or summation of whatever it is that needs to be resolved. It's perfect.
Yeah. It's sort of like by just being present and grounded and in the now. Eckhart Tolle wrote a book called, it's escaping me, The Power of Now.
Yes.
And it's just such genius, but it's a habit to let the ego rule the roost. Yes. And to dictate all actions and all words and all of that. And I was there. I was 100% in.
I think we're all there at different times. I don't think we ever really get rid of, the ego is part of us, right? It is ourself.
It is, but it's almost always, in my case, it's almost always wrong.
Oh, so it's always wrong. It's never right. I do believe it's there to like safeguard you a little. And so you have to like appreciate that, like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You're bringing this to my attention. I really appreciate, like, you have to have a soft heart for the ego, right? We can't just hate it, but yeah, it's never right.
Right. And so, when we can kind of get past that first initial reaction to stimulus, then we can look at what the ego was saying and understand that, oh, okay, well, it was, I guess, maybe close. But if I find myself either defending myself or, because you say it's sort of like a shield, but defending myself or taking things personally or anything like that, then now I'm in the habit of having that become a red flag for me. Yeah. And I recognize, holy cow, that's not the real me speaking here. Yeah. Real me is the inner dialogue that pops up after I've heard what the ego has to say. Yeah. And it's pretty loud,
Yes.
Um,
Thank you for sharing. That's what I
yeah.
always do. Thank you for sharing. I hear ya.
And in that moment, just sort of letting the universe uh, be the universe. And then all of a sudden my heart speaks up. Like I said before, it's just this quiet little voice.
Yeah.
It's that to me is always right. And it's
Yes.
always the correct response if I can get to that point.
Yeah. I love it. Oh my gosh, Christian, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for coming on today.
My pleasure. This is
And
great.
and where can people get in touch with you and purchase your book?
Sure. So right on the front page of my website, there's a link to send me an email to order the book.
Okay.
And so it's wellnesswithchristian.com. Christian is spelled Kristian,
Okay.
and as seen right here.
Yeah.
And I'm also at Wellness with Christian on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
And then, I mean, some people text or call me, and that's
Yeah.
fine too. So 716-785-2685. But I'm very easy to reach, and I offer, free initial consultations where we can, just have a conversation like this
Yeah.
and decide if the direction individuals want to go, matches what I bring to the table. And if so, then we talk about maybe moving forward.
I find talking with you is very calming and peaceful. So I can only imagine like working with you as a coach. I'm sure you bring a lot to the table.
Awesome. I really appreciate that.
You are so welcome. So, okay, I'm going to ask you our high five questions, just a little
Okay,
way for the audience to get to know you differently.
sure.
What inspires you?
People who think outside the box inspire me.
Yeah.
And people who look at the world in a way that very few others do, that
Yeah.
really inspires me, because as we said before, it's sort of taboo to think outside the box, and we're trained through society and all of society's messages that we need to sort of compartmentalize ourselves
Right.
and turn into something that the world wants us to, rather than searching within ourselves to determine what we want. So those people who can step outside that cage or cave or whatever, and look at the world in a different way, that is wildly inspiring for me.
Nice. How do you have fun?
I ride my mountain bike. I've been mountain biking for over 30 years. I got trained
Do
a
you
couple
ever get hurt?
here and there. I
Oh,
crashed really bad. I was living in Colorado. It was like the first ride of the year, and I crashed and blew out my shoulder and had to sit on the couch for 4 months.
oh,
And so that was over 20 years ago, and I sort of just toned down and
yeah.
now I'm way safer. But I got certified as a skills instructor a few years back. So during the summer, I help beginners kind of, feel more confident and in control on the bike. And so that's a ton of fun for me. I love it. I collect record albums and not
Nice.
just to have them, but to listen.
To listen to. I
Yeah.
love it. That's so cool. What's one thing you cannot live without?
The love of my life. My
Oh,
spouse, Julie, is my accountability partner.
how
Um,
sweet.
she's just fabulous, and I'm a lucky man to have found my soulmate per se.
Oh, that is so sweet. What does freedom mean to you?
Ooh. I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with health. Freedom is freedom of the body to move and do what I want to do with that. It's freedom of the mind, where I'm not limiting myself with that, and then of the spirit, the being, the soul, where I'm sort of connected with the universe. Like
Yeah.
that to me is freedom, being able to speak my mind, and free from these lies I was taught my whole life, either by society or by people I trusted, which
Right.
form these limiting beliefs. Getting those out of the way was the biggest step towards freedom I've ever taken.
Beautiful. What are you grateful for?
Oof. You ready for a long, long list? No.
Maybe like one or two, three, something like that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, oddly, I am grateful for psoriasis. That may sound crazy, but without
I love
that,
that you said that. How amazing is that you can say that?
it's not easy because I spent so long hating it.
Hating it. I know.
And
But it's
so,
such a sense of freedom that you can get to a place where, yes, and I think that's so important for our audience. When you hate something for so long, and you can get to a place where you can say, that was a hard journey, that was a long journey, that was intense, but you know what? I'm grateful for what it gave me. I mean,
yeah,
that's huge.
yeah. My diet and my habits would have sent me to an early grave. I'm
Yeah.
absolutely convinced of that. So by getting that figured out and having those symptoms that forced me to live my life a different way, like that's huge. I just it really is sort of almost unsettling to say
Yeah.
that I'm grateful for it, but it's true. Without it, I wouldn't have found my way.
Oh my gosh. Thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate it. This has been wonderful. And we'll have your information on the show notes so our audience can get in touch. But again, thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
I'm full of gratitude, Christy. Thank you. This is fun, and I've been smiling the whole time.
I said in
You're,
the beginning, it was going to be like we were just sitting here having coffee, talking, bouncing ideas off. I love that.
yeah,
Listeners, thank you for listening to Living the Liminal this week. Have a great week. Just remember, you are both student and teacher. So take what you need from today's episode and by all means, share it with others. And you are a beautiful soul. I love you. Peace out, my friends.